but I'm innocent. And together, my wife and I, and my family, we're going to fight these false accusations.
Those were Kobe Bryant's words back in 2003, with Vanessa standing right beside him. Now, chatter has picked up online suggesting Vanessa herself has been sentenced for her complicity after a confession. To see where that claim comes from, we go back to the case that started it all. The hotel room in Colorado that started it all. The date was June 30th, 2003. Kobe Bryant was 24 years old, a Los Angeles Laker at the top of the basketball world, and married for 2 years to Vanessa Bryant, who was 20 at the time and pregnant with their first daughter, Natalia. He had flown into Colorado to have knee surgery at a nearby clinic the following morning, and he checked into a resort called the Lodge and Spa at Cordillera in Edwards, Colorado. When he arrived, a 19-year-old hotel employee was assigned to give him a tour of the property. That tour ended in his hotel room. What happened inside that room would become the subject of one of the most talked about cases of the 2000s. The employee went to the police within hours. She told investigators that Kobe had her, that he had held her by the neck from behind, and that she had asked him to stop. Police documented bruises on her neck and injuries that were consistent with her account. She was taken to a local hospital for a sexual assault examination, and the evidence collected there would become central to the case. On July 2nd, Kobe sat down with Eagle County investigators. In that first interview, he denied that anything sexual had happened at all. Then the investigators told him they had physical evidence, and his account changed. He admitted that there had been a sexual encounter, but he insisted that it had been consensual. In the same interview, according to court filings later circulated widely online, Kobe described using his hands on the accuser's neck, saying he did not know how hard he had done it, and he referenced a prior encounter with a different woman as context for how he tended to behave in that situation. That part of the interview would be sealed and argued over for months. 4 days later, on July 6, 2003, Kobe was arrested and posted a $25,000 bond. By July 18th, the Eagle County District Attorney had formally filed a charge of sexual assault against him. The charge carried a possible sentence of 4 years to life in prison. News cameras had been camped outside the courthouse in Eagle for days, and within hours of the charge being announced, Kobe and his legal team boarded a plane back to California to face the public. That same day, Kobe walked into a press conference at the Staples Center in Los Angeles. Vanessa sat right next to him. She did not speak, but she held his hand, and she did not leave his side. Kobe addressed the room with a statement that would be replayed for years afterwards.
I'm innocent. I didn't force her to do anything against her will. I'm innocent.
He continued, making it clear that he saw this as a battle the two of them would fight side by side.
But I'm innocent. And together, my wife and I, and my family, we're going to fight these false accusations.
And then he turned to Vanessa directly, in front of the cameras, and spoke to her.
The strongest person I know. I'm so sorry. Having to put you through this.
That same afternoon, Vanessa put out her own written statement. In it, she acknowledged that her husband had committed adultery. She called it a mistake, but she drew a firm line between adultery and the crime he was being charged with. She said she believed he had not committed a crime. She said she believed in his innocence, and she said she would stand by him. That public posture, taken on the very day the charge was filed, is what has been re-examined, recirculated, and reinterpreted for more than 20 years since. From that July afternoon onward, Vanessa Bryant became a central figure in the public conversation about the case, not because she was ever accused of anything herself, but because of the position she had taken. To understand what that position led to, we have to follow what happened next inside the Eagle County courtroom. The case. Between the summer of 2003 and the fall of 2004, the Colorado case dragged through a series of pre-trial hearings that became almost as famous as the case itself. Kobe's defense team, led by attorneys Pamela Mackey and Hal Haddon, went on the offensive almost immediately, and the tactics they used are still cited today as a turning point in how American courts handle sexual assault cases. According to the Wikipedia case summary, the defense pushed repeatedly to introduce evidence about the accuser's personal life, her mental health history, and her sexual history in the days surrounding the incident. They raised questions about a previous hospitalization, questions about a failed audition for a talent show, and questions about people she had been in contact with in the days before she met Kobe. Each of those questions was filed as a motion. Each of those motions generated a hearing, and each of those hearings produced a round of headlines that reached the front pages of newspapers across the country. One of the central fights was over an item of clothing. Defense lawyers argued that a pair of underwear the accuser had worn to her hospital examination contained material from another another man, and they wanted that fact put before a jury. The accuser's team said the underwear had been pulled from a laundry basket and that she had not showered between the incident and the hospital visit. Court rulings on that evidence went back and forth for months, with the judge reversing himself at one point and then reversing again after a second round of arguments. During the same period, the accuser's identity was leaked. Her name was published on websites. Her email address was circulated. She received death threats. Court officials accidentally released her name in official filings on more than one occasion, a series of errors that the Colorado judiciary later publicly apologized for. The judge issued sanctions and ordered the filings sealed, but the information was already out. Reporters described a press crush at the courthouse in Eagle that rivaled anything they had covered, with satellite trucks lining the streets and camera crews waiting for every hearing. As the hearings continued, the judge in the case made a pre-trial ruling that some of the sexual history evidence could be presented to the jury. That ruling is widely described as the moment the accuser began reconsidering whether she could go through with a trial. On September 1st, 2004, just as jury selection was about to begin, her attorneys informed the court that she would not testify. Without her testimony, the prosecution had no case, and the criminal charge was formally dismissed. Kobe then issued a written apology statement through his attorneys. In it, he said he wanted to apologize directly to the young woman involved, and he acknowledged that although he had believed the encounter was consensual, he now understood that she did not view it the same way he did, and he accepted that she did not consent to what happened in that hotel room. The statement was carefully written. It was released as part of a negotiated agreement tied to the dismissal of the criminal case, and it could not be used as evidence in any related civil proceeding. Legal analysts at the time pointed out that the wording had been chosen specifically to satisfy the accuser's demand for an acknowledgement without admitting criminal conduct. A separate civil lawsuit was still alive, however. The accuser had filed it against Kobe in August of 2003. That case was settled out of court in March 2005. The terms of the settlement were kept confidential, and neither side has ever publicly disclosed the figure. Legal commentators at the time estimated the settlement to be in the millions, but no formal figure has ever been entered into the public record. Throughout every stage of those 14 months, from the arrest through the dismissal through the civil settlement, Vanessa Bryant was never a defendant. She was never a co-defendant. She was never named in any filing in Eagle County, Colorado, in any capacity other than as Kobe's wife. She gave no sworn testimony. She was not deposed. She attended none of the hearings in Colorado. She was, from a legal standpoint, entirely outside the case. But Vanessa's involvement in Kobe's life did eventually bring her into courtrooms of her own. And to see how, we have to jump forward 16 years to a morning in January 2020 that changed everything. January 26, 2020. On the morning of January 26, 2020, Kobe Bryant boarded a Sikorsky S-76B helicopter in Orange County, California, along with his 13-year-old daughter Gianna, known to everyone as Gigi, and 7 other passengers. The group was flying to a youth basketball tournament at the Mamba Sports Academy in Thousand Oaks, where Gigi was scheduled to play and Kobe was scheduled to coach. The pilot that morning was Ara Zobayan, a pilot Kobe had flown with many times before. The other passengers included a fellow coach, a baseball coach from a local college, and 2 other young players on Gigi's team along with their parents. The weather along the flight path was deteriorating. Fog was rolling in across the Los Angeles basin, and visibility was dropping. The helicopter was operating under visual flight rules, which meant the pilot was required to keep the ground in sight. As the aircraft moved through the Calabasas Hills, the cloud base closed in around it. Air traffic controllers were communicating with Zobayan, and at several points during the flight, he adjusted course to try to maintain visibility, circling for a time over Glendale before continuing on. At approximately 9:45 in the morning, according to the final report from the National Transportation Safety Board, Zobayan radioed that he was climbing to get above the clouds. The NTSB later determined that the pilot had become spatially disoriented. Believing he was climbing, he had actually banked the helicopter into a steep left turn and was descending. Seconds later, the aircraft struck a hillside in Calabasas. All 9 people on board were killed. The probable cause determined by the NTSB was the pilot's decision to continue flight under visual flight rules into instrument meteorological conditions with planned continuation bias, and company safety oversights listed as contributing factors. Vanessa Bryant was suddenly a widow, and she was also the mother of 3 surviving daughters: Natalia, who was 17 at the time, Bianca, who was 3, and Capri, who was just 7 months old. She was still in the earliest stage of processing what had happened when a second story began to emerge. The Los Angeles Times reported that first responders from the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department and the Los Angeles County Fire Department had taken photographs of the human remains at the crash site. The pictures were close up and graphic. They included the remains of Kobe, the remains of Gigi, and the remains of the other 7 victims. Those photographs had then been shared. Deputies passed them around at a bar. Firefighters forwarded them to family members. Texts and conversations referenced the remains with language that was later read out loud in court. Vanessa testified that she had been given assurances from county officials in the days immediately after the crash that the site had been secured and that no such imagery existed, and that learning the truth a few weeks later felt like a second, separate loss. Vanessa filed a federal lawsuit against Los Angeles County, alleging invasion of privacy and negligence. In August of 2022, that lawsuit went to trial. Over the course of 11 days in a federal courtroom in Los Angeles, she testified about what learning of the photographs had done to her. She told the jury that the news reached her while she was still breastfeeding her youngest daughter. She described panic attacks. She described wanting to run down a pier and jump into the water because she felt there was no way to escape the knowledge that images of her husband and her daughter existed in the phones of strangers. She spoke about her daily fear that the photographs would one day appear online where her daughters might see them. The jury sided with her. They returned a verdict of $16 million in her favor, later adjusted to $15 million to correct a clerical issue, with additional millions awarded to a co-plaintiff whose family member had also died in the crash. In February 2023, Vanessa and the county reached a final settlement that resolved all remaining claims. The total figure was roughly $28.85 million, covering her own damages and the future claims of her 3 daughters. Her attorneys stated afterwards that portions of the funds would be directed to the foundation she had established in memory of Kobe and Gigi. In that case, Vanessa was the plaintiff. She was the one suing. She was the one awarded damages. She was not a defendant. She was not charged with anything, and she entered no guilty plea of any kind. To understand where the story stands now, and where the idea of a sentencing even comes from, we have to look at what Vanessa Bryant has actually been doing with her time in 2025 and 2026. Vanessa Bryant. Since the settlement with Los Angeles County was finalized, Vanessa Bryant's public life has been organized around 3 things: her 3 daughters, the Mamba and Mamba Cheetah Sports Foundation, and a slow, deliberate program of legacy projects that honor both Kobe and Gigi. The biggest of those projects in the recent calendar arrived on February 24th, 2026. That date was chosen on purpose. Gigi's jersey number was 2, Kobe's was 24. And February 24th, 224, is the day the Bryant family marks publicly every year. On that morning, Vanessa arrived at Hoag Hospital in Newport Beach, California, the hospital where she had delivered all 4 of her daughters, and she unveiled the Kobe and Vanessa Bryant family court. The court is not a legal court. It is a departure lounge inside the hospital's women's health pavilion, designed for new mothers and their families. Vanessa had funded the space personally, and she spoke at the ceremony about the fact that Kobe used to wait for her in that same pavilion when it was time to take her and a new baby home. Coverage of the dedication appeared in the Los Angeles Times, on Yahoo Sports, and in the Times of India. Chris Paul was there, Nafisa Collier was there, so were all 3 of Vanessa's daughters. Vanessa posted about the day on Instagram and described Hoag as a place that would always hold a special place in her heart, and she framed the gift as a way of giving back to future mothers and families who would move through the same rooms she once did. The pavilion's focus areas include endocrinology and autoimmune care for women, 2 fields she had specifically wanted the gift to support. Outside of Hoag, the Mamba and Mamba Cheetah Sports Foundation, which Vanessa renamed to include Gigi after the crash, has continued to operate. The foundation funds court dedications, scholarships, and events aimed at expanding opportunities for young athletes, particularly young female athletes. In the same window of time, a bronze statue was unveiled outside of Crypto.com Arena in Los Angeles depicting Kobe as a girl dad, a reference to one of his most famous public phrases about raising daughters. Vanessa has continued to release special Nike Mamba Cheetah sneakers on anniversaries tied to Gigi's life. When the UConn women's basketball team won a recent national championship, Vanessa posted about how much Gigi, who had wanted to play college basketball at UConn, would have enjoyed the moment. In her personal life, what is publicly visible has been focused on family. Vanessa took her daughters to Disneyland during Easter weekend of 2026. She posted a message welcoming the new year at the beginning of January 2026, writing that she would make an effort to share more joy with her followers. She has continued to speak about Gigi in interviews that accompany these projects. When rumors have circulated online about a new relationship or another pregnancy, she has used her Instagram stories to shut them down directly, almost always within hours of the rumors spreading. In a sit-down conversation that has been widely shared over the past couple of years, Vanessa told a story about Gigi that captures the version of her daughter she keeps returning to in public.
There were a few occasions where I was absolutely tired from being up with Bianca and Capri, and I thought she had left to school without saying goodbye. I text and say, "No kiss?"
She went on to explain what Gigi would write back when she sent those messages.
And Gianna would reply with, "Mama, I kissed you, but you were asleep and I didn't want to wake you.
In the same conversation, she described what Gigi was like as a person.
Her smile was like sunshine. Her smile took up her entire face, like mine.
She added more about the personality traits Gigi shared with her.
Kobe always said she was me. She had my fire, my personality, and sarcasm.
And on the simple question of what she misses most, she answered plainly.
We love each other so much. I miss her so much. She was so energetic. I couldn't keep up with her energy.
None of the public records in 2025 or 2026 includes a criminal charge against Vanessa Bryant, a civil finding of liability against her, or a sentencing hearing of any kind. With all of that laid out across more than 2 decades, we can finally step back and address the claim in the title directly. Examining the claim. The title of this story asks a specific question. It asks whether Kobe Bryant's wife has been sentenced for complicity after confessing to his crimes. Having walked through every documented legal proceeding involving Vanessa Bryant from 2003 to the present, the question can now be answered by comparing the claim to the record. Start with the word crimes. The only criminal charge ever filed against Kobe Bryant in his entire life was the single sexual assault charge filed in Eagle County, Colorado in July 2003. That charge was dismissed in September 2004 when the accuser declined to testify. A dismissed charge is not a conviction. Kobe Bryant was never convicted of any crime at any point in his life. He never entered a guilty plea. He never stood trial. The only public acknowledgement he ever made was the written apology issued as part of the dismissal, in which he said he accepted that the accuser did not view the encounter as consensual, while also saying he continued to believe the encounter had been consensual at the time. That document is a personal apology. It is not a criminal confession, and no court ever treated it as one. In the 2 decades that followed, no additional charges were ever filed against him, no additional complaints were ever made public, and no pending legal matters existed against him at the time of his death in January 2020. Next, look at the concept of complicity. Complicity is a legal doctrine. It requires that a person knowingly assist, encourage, or facilitate the commission of a crime. It cannot be applied to a crime that was never legally established, and it cannot be applied to a person who was not present, not alleged to have participated, and not alleged to have known about the conduct in advance. Vanessa Bryant was in California, pregnant with her first child, when her husband traveled to Colorado alone in June 2003. There is no filing, no indictment, no court document, and no law enforcement statement anywhere in the public record that places her inside the chain of the 2003 incident. No prosecutor in Colorado, California, or any other jurisdiction has ever opened an inquiry that touched her in connection with what happened in that hotel room. Now look at the phrase, after confessing to his crimes. Vanessa's public statement on July 18, 2003 acknowledged adultery on Kobe's part. Adultery is not a crime in Colorado. She explicitly separated the act of adultery from the criminal charge, and she explicitly said she did not believe he had committed a crime. That statement is not a confession to anything. It is a statement of marital support, combined with a denial of the criminal allegation. In the years since, she has never said anything that contradicts the position she took that day. She has not granted interviews that revisit the 2003 case. She has not written a memoir that addresses it. She has not made any public remarks that could be characterized as a confession on her husband's behalf or on her own. Finally, look at the word sentence. Vanessa Bryant has been involved in 2 major legal proceedings in her life. The first was the 2022 federal trial against Los Angeles County over the crash photographs. She was the plaintiff in that case. The jury awarded her damages and the county paid her. The second was the settlement that followed in early 2023, which brought the total to roughly $29 million. In neither of those proceedings was she a defendant. A plaintiff who wins a case and receives damages is not sentenced. There is no such legal event in her life. There is no booking photograph, no arraignment filing, no plea hearing, no probation record, no judgment of conviction. None of the ordinary paperwork that would accompany a criminal sentencing exists for her. Putting all of that together, the claim that Vanessa Bryant has been sentenced for complicity after confessing to Kobe's crimes does not match the public record at any point. The only criminal case in Kobe's life was dismissed without conviction. Vanessa was never named, charged, indicted, or questioned in connection with it. Her 2003 statement was a denial of the criminal allegation, not a confession. The only courtrooms she has personally appeared in since have been ones where she was the person bringing the lawsuit and she won. What the real record shows is something narrower and more specific. It shows a woman who made a public decision in 2003 to stand beside her husband during a legal case that was eventually dismissed, who survived a helicopter crash that took her husband and one of her children, who then took on a county government in federal court over how first responders had treated the bodies of her family, and who in 2026 opened a hospital lounge for new mothers on what would have been an anniversary date marked by her family every year. Those are the events that are documented. They are the events that court filings, news archives, hospital announcements, and her own public statements confirm. If you enjoyed this video, click on any of the cards on your screen.